Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's installment of Stand Against Racism from YWCA Greater Green Bay. Thank you all so much for joining us, and thank you to Humana for supporting us in our mission of eliminating racism, empowering women, and promoting peace, justice, freedom, and dignity for all. Today, we are joined by Officer Cami and Sergeant Kris from the Green Bay Police Department to talk about the Community Crisis Intervention Team. This is a team that's really designed to help people who are in mental health crisis and divert them away from interactions with the criminal justice system and into other kinds of community supports. We're really excited to hear about this and hear about some resources available in our community. So again, thanks so much to everyone for joining us, and let's pop in with Kris and Cami. Hi, thanks so much for joining me today. Can you introduce yourselves first?
Sure. I'm Officer Cami Allen with the Green Bay Police Department. So I am a community police officer. Been an officer with Green Bay for I think over 10 years. And yes, I'm on my 10th year, or just finished my 10th year, so I'm on my 11th year. But a community police officer, so I work with a lot of landlords, tenants, more community-based long-term problems. In addition to that, I was a mental health officer for about 2 years, and I am one of the coordinators of our crisis intervention team, which is CIT.
And then I'm Christopher Thoreson. I'm a sergeant on night shift in the patrol division. So unfortunately, I work when a lot of people are sleeping. And then I also have been with the CIT program here in Green Bay since I think 2015. And I have about 8 years of experience with Green Bay Police Department. And I'm one of the co-coordinators with Cami of the CIT program here at the city of Green Bay.
So I appreciate you so much for joining us today, and we're here to talk about the Community Crisis Intervention Team, right? Can you tell us what that is?
Do you want to start?
Sure. So CIT started in the 80s. It was a result of a tragedy. A male with schizophrenia was tragically shot and killed by police. And so the law enforcement agency and the community, a huge part of it was NAMI, came together and said, you know, what had happened with the situation? How can we prevent this from occurring again? What can we do more as a community to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else? And so they formed CIT. And so it's an internationally based recognized program. So we train our officers in the Memphis Model, which is the best practice internationally. And basically it's a community-based program. So law enforcement, mental health professionals, mental health advocates, and all of their partners that come together to address mental health in the community. So if that's someone to seek treatment to the community, making it more efficient, for the law enforcement stance, reducing our role in the crisis calls. When someone's in crisis or the family member's in crisis, you know, they call 911 because they want someone to come out and help them right away. They're not necessarily asking for police, but because we're the ones that go out when you call 911, you know, us and the firefighters, you know, we're the ones that are interacting with them. So it's really not always a law enforcement issue, but we get those calls. So working with the community and saying, do we really need to go out to this call? How can we make it more efficient that people can maybe bypass police and get to the help that they need without having to get to the point where it is a crisis and we're getting called? So working with those community members, and then also from our standpoint, working on de-escalation. So using different tools. So we're not always resorting to maybe the tools we have in our belt, maybe we're using the tools of talking and de-escalation tools. So all that sort of training for our end to work with people that are in a mental health crisis.
So I know that that's a lot of the sort of criticism around police reform, is that so often things sort of flow downstream until they end up with a 911 call. And for so many of our communities, that's really the only kind of place, right? It's like the first and last sort of piece of defense that we have in our communities. So it's great to hear that Green Bay has got some pieces in place that are upstream so that we can try and prevent some of that stuff from ending up in 911 calls there at the end. So super, super interesting. So you talked about the Memphis model. Can you tell me what that is?
So that was just based off of kind of where it originated out of was Memphis. So that's kind of what name stuck with it. And it was back in 1988, which is when this Memphis model had kind of developed and has been kind of progressively flowing throughout the country and been adapted internationally, as Cami was saying, through CIT International. So it's really taken the bull by the horns, so to speak, and become kind of the go-to for crisis intervention for law enforcement, but also for community-based programs that utilize like CIP, which is these correctional officers, probation officers, social workers, school teachers, and so it's all about increasing the awareness of mental health and the resources that are in your community.
And just to clarify, so like CIT is the program, the CIT training is just for law enforcement. It's a 40-hour law enforcement training. The guidelines are set by the Memphis Model and CIT International. That's what we train our officers. But then, as Kris had mentioned, there's the CIP, Crisis Intervention Partners. And so we work with corrections and stuff. And so they get a slimmed down version of that that they're trained in responding to those in crisis.
And kind of what are some of those strategies within the Memphis model that y'all use?
So again, like Kimi brought up, de-escalation is really the hot button word right now. And a lot of that comes from just professional communications and taking the time, because people that struggle with mental illness, they may not respond as a normal, typical person would be in asking questions and answering questions. So sometimes it's slowing that whole process down and recognizing that this may take, a lot more time devoted to this individual before they either feel comfortable in answering. And you have to also understand that some people don't just answer via dialogue. Some people, you got to utilize different communication techniques, whether it's writing down on a notebook and having communication, handwritten communication, or utilizing let me talk applications for people that are nonverbal. So it might be that extra step of going beyond just dialogue and realizing that, you might have to think a little bit of, more critically about how are you going to effectively communicate with this person.
And then two other things that I think are important to mention would be the connection of resources that's heavily weighed on, are taught to officers is making sure you're connecting people with resources. Let's get them to local therapists. Let's get them into treatment centers. Let's get them connected with other resources. Maybe they're struggling with homelessness, and let's get them connected with the shelters or the case managers who work with that. So connecting people with resources so they can work with the individuals that are, the experts in the field. We wear a lot of hats, but are we experts in mental health? We're not. And so we're connecting these people with people that are the experts. So they can work with them and they can be stable and they can get a treatment plan. And so they're not always that recidivism that that spiraling out of control where we're getting the multiple calls on that person as that then they end up in the jail system a lot of the times. And that's another thing, part of the Memphis Model and CIT is trying to work on jail diversion. So that's a huge portion of us. We don't want to arrest someone as you have to think about what is the end goal. If I'm going to arrest someone, if I'm going to ticket this person, what does that really accomplish? Law enforcement officers have the ability for discretion, and sometimes we don't based on state law, but a lot of times we do. So we have to think about what does the citation do? How does this help this person? Sometimes it helps a person, never do that again. But with a mental illness, does that person understand what's going on? And so a citation maybe isn't appropriate. So, and if they don't have the funds to pay for the citation, are they going to end up in jail when they can't pay? Their citation is going to turn into a warrant. So kind of thinking about that. So connecting them with resources so they don't end up in the jail system, even though they've kind of already dipped into the criminal justice system by dealing with us. It doesn't have to be always a bad relationship, a bad meeting with us. But another thing that's really cool about Brown County that Kris and I are both a part of is the treatment courts. We have a ton of treatment courts. So if they happen to go into the mental, or if it's a mental health related call and they happen to go to the criminal justice system, there's ways for them to get treatment. It doesn't always have to be a bad situation. Sometimes families say, oh my gosh, my individual's life was saved by this is the only way they could get forced treatment and their life is turned around. And so sometimes it's positive, but we have drug court, we have heroin court, we have veteran courts, family, mental health, youth, OWI. So there's a lot of treatment courts that we're super, super happy about, that we're very, very lucky that if people have to go in the criminal justice system, that there are ways to get them help. So a lot of counties don't have that. So we're really lucky.
Yeah, and it's a community-based approach too for the treatment courts. It's not just law enforcement sitting on there and saying, well, what do we think should be the right answer to this person's struggles? It's a community-based approach. So by what I mean by that is we have social worker, we have a public defender's office, we have DA's office, we have law enforcement, we have jail, we have someone from the treatment center. So you have a team on each court, and we know each individual that's accepted into the court. There's a legal screening and there's a process for which they're vetted to make sure that this isn't one of those, well, they see an easy out, right, of getting out of prison or getting out of jail. This is a very intensive program and a court for these individuals, and they're held accountable. It's not like you get in there and you get out of prison. It's not like get out of jail free card. You see actual real work and real progress made, because some of these individuals, they don't have the opportunities for treatment. They've never had a support system. Maybe they've been homeless. Maybe they have had family members that have basically left them high and dry, and now they're actually getting an accountable system there to keep them focused on bettering themselves and hopefully making them a functional member of society.
Yeah, and one of the neat things about mental health court, I used to be on the team, now I'm a drug court, but they think of out of the box approaches to violations. So typically, if you're on strict probation, and sometimes that works for individuals, but say you have a violation, well, maybe that would be an automatic lockup. But with mental health, we want them to be on a treatment plan. We want them to be stabilized with their medication. If they go into jail, are they going to get their medicine? And if they don't, which sometimes it's hard for them to get their medicine, are they going to go off their meds? Are they going to kind of spiral, and then they're not on a treatment plan, and it's very hard to get them back into the medication and they get stabilized again. So thinking of out of box, violations, I'm trying to think of an individual that was on the court when I was a part of it, and they loved going to thrift stores. And so he had violated some terms. And so we put a rule that he wasn't allowed to go to the specific store that he loved to thrift shop. And it was a big thing for him. And so he didn't do again what he had done. He learned his lesson, but that was kind of a way to have some sort of, violation addressed, but not bring him to jail, which would have been more detrimental to his health. So it's a neat program.
I've never thought about that sort of like very kind of like specific grounding before.
Yeah. I think it kind of impose their own kind of like special rules. So they're very, very neat programs.
And maybe if someone, for instance, like misses a drug test, for instance, right? We have a track record, everything's well documented. Maybe they have 8 hours of community service they have to go and attend, or maybe it's a support group, just like any other citizen. Maybe they want to go, they have a wedding or a funeral they have to attend to that's out of the county. So they have to submit a request, and that can be used as maybe a no because of a punishment for them not attending group or something of that sort, like a group session. Or we can reward them with those travel requests. So if they're doing really well and they're progressing, the team makes the decision together, and it's not just like a judge saying, well, no, it's the team coming together. Mm-hmm. So that's what makes it unique and makes it refreshing to see stuff like that in the community.
Definitely really refreshing to see that there are some different approaches here. Another very much people who are proponents of police reform, that's a lot of the concern, is that people who have mental health issues in a lot of communities, kind of the only safe place for them is locked up, is in jail. So we see people with mental health concerns just in jail because communities don't have any other options. So it's really great to see that there are some other options happening in Green Bay where people are held accountable and there's still consequences for things, but also that they're still getting the treatment that they need, that they're being treated like real human beings that have needs and things that they need. And a little bit more of a creative approach to it than just jail. So super appreciate that. Anything you want to really share with us? Any highlights, any big wins that you want to let people know about?
So this past fall in 2021, is COVID really ruined a lot of things. I think, everybody's, tired of dealing with COVID and the protocols that were there. But Cami and I kind of took over coordinating the CAT team here at Green Bay PD this past year. And we facilitated a CAT training. Again, it's law enforcement training for the frontline officers in the greater Brown County area. And it's a 40-hour training. It's a week long. Now, this isn't I should say the key to being an expert, because we're not experts. It's the goal is to get officers more aware of the resources in their community and understand and recognize mental health concerns or calls of service that come up that, there's something of a resource that could point to this individual, and there's some de-escalation. There's a lot of different things set forth we follow the protocol set forth by NAMI. And like, if you want to see here, this is one of our binders that we had, every officer got, and it's full of resources and information. I know it's hard to see over the computer, but yeah, it's a 40-hour week-long process. There's at the end, there's some scenarios involving the officers and realistic scenarios that we encounter on the road as patrol officers, and how to help point the person towards the right resource in the community. So there's a lot of different speakers. There's treatment providers, there's doctors that come in, there's the mental health court, there's a whole lot of community-based resources that attend this training that, again, geared towards law enforcement. And I think we had 36 officers. So a majority were Green Bay and Brown County deputies. And then we had some from Door County. We had some from Oneida PD. We had some from Kewaunee County and Oshkosh. Yeah. So, I mean, we kind of spread the Northeast Wisconsin area. So that was exciting. And I don't know do you want to touch any more on that?
Yeah, one of the portions of the training is a site visit day. So they do half of the day with going out to different community-based resources that Kris mentioned. And so they go and they tour the facilities. They meet with consumers on site. They learn about how to refer people there. I think we had about 16 organizations that partnered with us that day that we can send officers to. So again, CIT is a partnership. So really thankful that we had so many places that we could send officers to. So yeah, it was wonderful. And so I think we have about a little over a third of our officers at Green Bay Police Department are currently trained in CIT. So so that's a big win as well. So we're always looking to train more officers, and that just kind of ensures, if depending on when you call or where your call or case ends up, there's detectives that are trained in CIT, there's school resource officers that are trained in CIT, community police officers, sergeants, captains, every kind of level and organization and unit that someone's on, there's a CIT officer. So depending on what your interaction with police is, there's someone that can help you that's gone through the training, that is empathetic to what's going on and can kind of approach it from a different way. So yeah, and then we also have our behavioral health officer team as well. So our clinician had just left for another organization that she's working with now, but we have that unit. We've had that position since 2015, so that's why I used to be. But it's two officers. Right now we have one, but we're getting another one. But 2 officers that work full time in mental health related call. They're called the behavioral health officer unit because they also encompass like brain-based disorders and homelessness issues and drug and alcohol addiction as well. And then we also get paired with a clinician. So that's been an awesome approach, and just going out and call with each other. So it's an easy way for someone to get connected with resources. You don't have to do the multiple steps, like going to crisis and then going to the medical hospital and going to maybe the psychiatric hospital. Maybe that clinician that works with us can kind of step in and alleviate all those other steps they have to go through. So a neat thing that we've implemented last, I think, 2 years. And so hopefully we'll get a clinician soon and we can start that up again.
That's really fantastic. And so really fantastic to hear about the different kinds of layers of approach and how many people are trained, and that there's a lot of really good resources within the police department, and also within kind of Brown County with the sheriff's office as well. So I super appreciate that. So, well, I really appreciate your time in being here today. Um, and helping our audience to learn more about the kinds of resources that are available within Green Bay, with the police department, with the sheriff's department. So I appreciate you very much. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
No problem. And always feel free, as you know, from the community standpoint, to reach out. If we don't know the answer, we definitely can reach out to other resources in the community, which is nice. Green Bay is very lucky to have a lot of resources here, and we utilize them on a daily basis. So, don't if you're wondering what to do next, I mean, the best thing is just to ask and not just fall on the wayside like some people do in the community. We want to help you and get you to the right where you need to be back up and functioning appropriately.
Again, thank you all so much for joining us this week with Stand Against Racism from YWCA Greater Green Bay. Thank you so much to Officer Cami and Sergeant Kris from the Green Bay Police Department for helping us to understand and learn a little bit about the Community Crisis Intervention Team. Again, thank you to Humana for joining us in our mission with a financial sponsorship for this work. If you have questions, if you have reactions, we would love to hear about them over in our community Facebook group for Stand Against Racism. So if you go to Facebook and search for YWCA Greater Green Bay, and then at the menu on the top, search for groups, there's a Stand Against Racism group. And that is really the place for us to have ongoing conversation and discussion, ask questions, and see what you think about the content this week. So thank you all again so much, and we will see you again next week. Bye.